Hello, and welcome to Connect the Dots, episode 14. I'm holding down the fort today. My esteemed colleague Arjuna is unable to make us, but I will do my best to rock things out here. We've got a great show today. Just want to say thanks to Marie and Nat for holding things down behind the scenes here. They're producing the show from Cometa Agency. And thanks to anyone who's making a bit of time in their day to tune into the show here. We like to do our best to discuss modern web tech. And we love answering questions. So, for any of you that are tuning in through, I think, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn Live, feel free to pop something into the comments. And we'll do our best to answer your questions on anything to do with web technology. And this year we've had a bit of a focus on CMSs and content platforms, but we cover marketing stacks, infrastructure, anything to do with web stuff. So thanks for joining us. And without further ado, just wanted to make a warm and gracious welcome to Andrew Kumar, who is joining us from Uniform today. Welcome. Thanks for making time in your day to hang out with us and talk a little web tech and share what's going on in your world. Maybe just introduce yourself and tell people who you are and maybe what you're thinking about. We'll get into a good chat.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the time and I'm excited to be here. So I'm Andrew, based just outside of Toronto area, and I work at Uniform. I have this title of Global VP of Customer Solutions and Tech Ecosystem. So there's kind of two parts to my role. Customer Solutions is really helping some of our large enterprise customers and working with the team. We have a lot of experts at Uniform, working with the team to help our customers kind of make a transition or transformation. So they might be starting in one way of building websites and apps, and they want to move in a more modern direction. So what are the tools, the platforms, the processes that they need to get from their current state, status quo, to a more friendly future state? And sometimes, status quo is just expensive and slow, so they need to make some adjustments to their tools and their ways of working. So Customer Solutions is really helping with that transition. And that's part of my role. The other part of my role is tech ecosystem. So we have integrations at Uniform with many other platforms in our ecosystem in kind of the website, web app, mobile app space. Some of them are customer data platforms that store information for personalization purposes. Some of them are digital asset management, so your images, your videos. Some of them are content management systems, e-commerce systems, product information systems, analytics, search. There's a lot of kind of different categories of tooling that comes together cohesively to make a modern website, a modern app. So managing that backlog of integrations, all of the partnerships, doing great events like this, working with agency partners to help them stay up to date or aware of what we're doing. That takes up all of my time. I arrived here in kind of a weird, windy way. I started off agency and systems integration side, helping a lot of clients do this type of activity, make these transformations or replatforms or just improve how they build websites and apps. Then I went client side and I worked for some pretty large Canadian brands. I worked at TELUS. I had Air Canada, Four Seasons, Loblaw, Freedom, Shaw as my base of clients in the Canadian market. Worked with Universal Parks and Resorts, KPMG. So I did that for a couple of years as well in my career. And then in the last 3 to 4 years, I made the transition to working for platform companies. So I had a tour of duty early in my career with MuleSoft, and that taught me a lot about how integration tools, integration frameworks come together. Then I worked at Contentful. Contentful is one of the leading headless content management systems. I used to say they're an up-and-coming CMS, but the reality is they've been around for a decade. They're no longer up and coming. They're there. They've arrived. So I learned different skills, different scar tissue across different industries in this windy path to Uniform. And now I feel like it's kind of collating, like, hey, I have a collection of skills that fits this org really well, because there's content management, there's integrations across different tools and platforms, there's personalization. So I'm happy. It's actually very strange way of arriving at an organization, but very serendipitous at the same time.
Super cool. The folks that typically join in either during this live experience here or later on what will become a podcast are senior marketing leadership. And they're often tasked amongst the variety of kind of traditional marketing stuff that they've got to take care of with web modernization, transformation, migration projects. Something that's on the back of their mind in the discussions that we have is, how do I understand and manage all of this kind of new way of building websites? So kind of really it's a simple but challenging situation where they may have built something 7 years ago on kind of a monolithic type of platform where you kind of like have a server and you host stuff on it and you kind of like do that kind of thing. Times have changed, and I care about explaining things simply. And one of the, I guess, aspects of Uniform that is really great is it allows kind of marketers or authors, publishers to have a really great visual experience managing their content, almost regardless of the underlying platform. Can you explain what Uniform is and does kind of simply, and then we can kind of dig into some of the more advanced features, because I think it's a really great tool and love to kind of share it with the folks that are listening in.
Yeah, definitely. So it kind of at a glance, Uniform, all of our founders are subject matter experts. They've worked across the content management, e-commerce, personalization space. They've been helping marketers for over 20 years. I always joke that like I can pull any one of my founders and drop them into a customer conversation and put them on the spot to give a demo, and they will not miss a beat. Like they're that good. Some of the organizations I've worked with, I haven't always had that, but I really appreciate that at Uniform. It's like they're just so good. So they've accumulated quite a lot of subject matter expertise around them, which is really nice. So at a glance, there's about 100 plus digital teams that are using Uniform. And we are distributed across 10 global locations. We have some folks in San Francisco, Portland, a small amount of us in Toronto and Ottawa, Boston, London, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Berlin, Venezia, Melbourne. So we're all over the place. Our company's powering over 1 billion experiences every month now. So it is, our customers tend to be large enterprise, and they push a ton of volume, a ton of page views through their sites. Now we have almost 80 partners when we think about how many technology integrations we have and how many agencies are in our ecosystem. And it's growing. So it's pretty good. We have a good base there. Our customers tend to cluster into 8 industries. There's fintech, consumer goods, banking, telco, insurance, higher ed, travel, hospitality. So that's Uniform at a glance, right? So we're about, I want to say about 4 years in. I've been with Uniform for the last year. Now the ultimate challenge or the ultimate thesis of Uniform is organizations, marketing. It used to be like IT, and then it went to marketing, and then it kind of swung back and forth about who actually manages the website and the apps. So no matter where you are, or sometimes there's a digital factory or a digital team that sits in the middle, and they have some specialized skill sets. But the ultimate thesis is that process between developers and marketers, and that workflow is still broken. And we've gone out and we've done a ton of research on this. And Darren, our president, is continuously interviewing CMOs and marketing leaders, and then CDOs and chief digital officers and CTOs. And this theme is still present, even though we've been at this for 20 years. And then the Content Marketing Institute has a stat where under 25% of marketers believe they have the right tools to succeed. And we start to let's untug that, right? Why is this so broken? Part of the reason is content is not simple. That we recognize that there are different types of content. There's content that's very stable. It doesn't change very often. Things like your articles, your legal information, your news, your press, your blog posts, your about pages. But then you have content that is volatile and decorative in nature. It changes all the time. So think landing pages, promotions, offers, call to actions, your hero banners. That changes all the time. So it's very difficult to manage those in the same way. Then there's a third type of data, which is not even content. It's just presentation information. So it's like metadata of how this content should display. So if you think about your navigation, your breadcrumbs, your footer, your sitemap, and any sort of animations. So when you start to bucket all of these things, content is not simple. And where it gets really messy is if you start putting the presentation stuff inside with the stable or the volatile stuff, you've now mixed what is presentation and what is content. Then when you add AI into the mix, it's going to take that source and make it even worse. So anything you're doing bad about mixing and matching presentation and content, or volatile content and stable content, you're now training an AI on bad patterns, and it's going to make it worse. So part of the role of Uniform is to create those clean lines of separation. So when you feed your AI, it's going to take what you're doing good and continue doing it good, but it's going to take what you're doing bad and continue doing it bad. So we want to establish this position of good. So content is not simple. When we look at legacy systems, you use the term monolith. I've been using the term legacy systems. You typically have to ship everything one at a time, so or you make a bunch of changes, but you don't get to ship individual components. You're shipping the whole piece of software at once. That creates kind of a slow and clunky process. Now, some people on LinkedIn have been challenging me whenever I say, "Hey, like, building a net new project on some of the older systems can take, when you're aggressive, 9 months, but realistically closer to 18 months." And I haven't had, like, when I point out that data point, no one really gives me a response. It says, no, it's actually 6 months. Like 9 to 18 months was my point, was my assessment from previous roles. And in today's world, I still think that's pretty slow and clunky. When we look at more of the headless composable implementations, they can be as quick as 6 months. They can be as quick as 3 months. But when you've broken things down into significant individual components, you can ship them all individually, which is incredibly empowering, but it's not increased the complexity. So if we think about a CMO's role or a senior marketing person's role, when you move from that slow and clunky starting point to a more composable way with many tools, many different systems, the complexity has increased. You may be faster, but your complexity and coordination goes up. This is another challenge where Uniform is trying to say, okay, we can reconcile some of this. We can provide some guardrails to reconcile the complexity, so you have a semblance of organization, so you don't have to continuously ship all individual pieces and have this large coordination effort. You can have kind of a central dashboard. We call it a visual workspace, where all your tools can come into one spot. You can assemble and manipulate and add content, remove content, make changes, and then you can preview everything and you hit save and publish. So it brings some level of control to that complexity without losing your speed. I have this diagram where I talk about when you're in a traditional legacy world versus a composable world, and different kind of factors. And typically it's the speed to market and composable is really good. Your site speed and performance and how Google ranks is really good when you're in the composable headless world. Your ability to serve multiple channels, so your website and your app with the same source, is really good. And the developers can use the best tools and frameworks available to them. So those are all wins for composable. Where composable loses is conversion rates, right? Like if you don't have the ability to bring data and content together to amplify conversion rates, that's typically where the traditional tool still has the edge. The ability to visually compose and manage and have a really nice editorial experience for non-developers. And I'm starting to switch my language from non-developers to non-technical, because what I'm finding is even today, marketers and content operators and web producers and merchandisers, everyone is pretty technical. It's just, do you write code or not? So,
Hey man, can you just to that point about things getting increasingly technical, can you just define in your words what is composable? Like our customers are still not even familiar with that concept right now, and I'd love to know how you describe that.
So yeah, the way I think about composable is kind of breaking down functions or features into individual pieces so that they have a little bit more autonomy to so in the I guess legacy or traditional world, your content management, your e-commerce, your digital asset management, it all lives in one platform. It all lives in one tool. So if there's a missing feature or function, you have to build it yourself, or you have to shift and to a certain degree, you may be waiting for someone to go build something. And you have to launch everything in one giant bucket. So even though you may only be changing something in your content management system, all your other systems are going live together. And that's typically normal in web software. Now, I keep thinking way back in the day to like computing science school 20 years ago. And we did not have monoliths 20 years ago. We actually did everything we were building for desktops or thin clients and fat clients and service-oriented architecture was composable then. But for some reason, the web went to all-in-one, your database, your front-end layer, your management layer, all-in-one interface. But the rest of software around the web was still in a composable way. So I think it's funny to start to see, hey, the web software is starting to go back towards a more composable structure, like desktop and thin client, fat client software used to be. In this composable world, you do have that separation. Your database is one service. So your content management system would be one system. Your e-commerce would be another system. Your digital asset management would be another system. Your search another system. Your analytics another system. And what you get is the best capabilities or the best features of each individual tool, but also a lot of freedom and flexibility to pick the right tools for your organization. So it's kind of this: what the best for my needs? Okay, I can pick those tools as opposed to buying one piece of software that has a little bit of everything. So that's how I'm defining composable and separating it. Now, there's much more I can go into composable versus traditional, but at a high level, that's where I keep it.
Cool. That helps as a piece of legacy information here for folks I can point them to some of your definitions of things, because we are kind of in a transitionary phase where our customers, the folks that are listening in, marketers in general, are they're taxed from a time perspective to get their heads wrapped around this kind of new modern architecture of things. Just on that point, what is the mindset of a marketing person or someone who would make a decision on uniform? Where are they at? What's going on in their world where kind of uniform lights up their eyes and like they get a little bit more interested in that as a solution?
So a common scenario. So someone in IT or digital will want to go and move into the composable headless world because it makes a lot of sense for that group. But that digital leader, that marketing leader, has some trade-offs. And so they'll go take a look at a few different tools, and they'll come look at uniform and realize, hey, I don't have to make those trade-offs. I have first-class tooling for my personalization and A/B testing, so I can have better conversion rates. I have first-class tooling for my editorial experience. I have first-class tooling for visual composition management. So typically, where the eyes light up is we'll show, like we call it the first uniform moment, something simple like, okay, I have this ad in market, or I have this email in market, and that email and the ad have UTM parameters. And when someone clicks through and they hit a landing page, that landing page will be fully personalized to match the campaign, because we can pick up that UTM parameter and personalize the entire page and the entire experience based on what campaigns in market. And all of a sudden you have like direct attribution. And then, so we show that, and then I'll go back into uniform and say, this is how I set this up. Here are all my campaigns in market. Here are the banners and the products and the carousels and the cards available to me. Now I'm going to take this banner and I'm going to assign it to this campaign, this carousel assign it to this campaign. And then I'll do that a few different times. And all of a sudden we have 3 campaigns powered on one page. I haven't written a line of code here, and it's all very visual. I have this catalog kind of all the different UI elements I can drop on a page, and then I drop it on the page. I change the content up, and all of a sudden I have this very nice, pleasant experience as an editor to do something that's very, very quite powerful, but I haven't written a line of code. And I can go from campaign to landing page to cart pretty seamlessly in 30 minutes. So that is a job to be done. It's just launching landing pages that match a campaign, or launching landing pages. And I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, but my 2-year-old is still in diapers. So, and we're like a loyal Pampers customer, and Pampers is a uniform customer. So every time I go to Pampers, I will open up the Chrome extension and be like, here is how Pampers has slotted me into different cohorts based on my purchasing behavior or viewing behavior. And it's like, look, they put me in the toddler all audience, and that is the highest scoring audience. So this homepage, every single block on the page of Pampers.com is personalized to me because I hit that toddler audience. But watch, now I'm going to click around. I'm going to go into the newborn audience. I'm going to go read some articles on sleep training. And then when I come back to the homepage and I open up the Chrome extension, now toddler audience I might be scoring 50% and I might be scoring 80% on newborn audience. It's a different homepage.
Mm-hmm. So
right?
Uniform providing a real personalized experience. That's kind of like one problem to be solving, I guess. Another case that we've recommended Uniform for is when our customers are on already established on a headless platform. Could be Contentful, could be Agility, Magnolia. But they have a desire for, I guess, an enhanced visual editing experience, let's say, where the core platform is doing everything it should be doing. And I think you use the term decorative content in there too. Yeah. That's a bit new to throw out there. I could use a bit of explanation, but that's when Uniform has another great, I guess, solution, which is providing visual editing experiences on top of existing platforms to kind of make life from the editor's perspective better. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I joke sometimes that we're like the Switzerland of visual editors because we're neutral. So if your content is coming from Magnolia or Contentful or Agility, we treat it the same and we will operate on top of all of those different CMSs. If your content is coming from Uniform, we treat it the same. There's like no special treatment for our own CMS. We're neutral. And oftentimes our customers will mix and match. They'll have almost all of our largest customers, like Pampers uses Contentful, Sainsbury's and Argos uses Magnolia, and they're adding Uniform on top to give that advanced visual authoring, visual editing. And part of the reason is being able to really drag and drop and move around and change the order of things in a flexible way without having to go back to a specific templating language or going back to code or anything complex. That's something that Uniform provides out of the box. And so and you mentioned decorative content. So a scenario of decorative content is you may have on a page, you might have some articles in 3 cards on a screen, and then below it you might have products with 3 cards on a screen. Now the product information might be coming from Commerce Tools or Salesforce Commerce Cloud or Shopify, one of those commerce platforms, and the articles might be coming from a Magnolia or a Contentful or an Agility. Now, if you're using the Contentful Studio authoring interface, it doesn't work across sources. It'll work really good for Contentful, but it won't work for Salesforce Commerce Cloud. If you use Salesforce Commerce Cloud's Page Designer, it's not going to work with Magnolia, right? And so like when you start mixing and matching your tools, because everybody has some sort of page builder or visual editing experience, but it's really good for their own source and nobody else's sources. So whereas Uniform is really good for everybody's sources. So we give you that flexibility to mix and match the data sources. So say you have 3 products coming from Salesforce or Shopify, and they live in this cards view. So the card 1, Shopify, card 2, Shopify, card 3, Shopify, or Salesforce, whatever. But right above it, you might have a section that says featured products for you, or featured products for your newborn, or featured products for your toddler. That text isn't coming from Shopify or Salesforce, right? And putting that text that only lives for that one page and that one experience in a headless CMS is overkill. It's not reusable content. So you're going to burn through a content type to have just a string of text. That's what I call decorative content. It's there to help you understand what's coming next. That's the perfect thing to just drop into Uniform, because you type it on the screen and it's there to set up the next section. And the same applies to articles. Hey, curated articles for you. And then it could be 3 articles from Magnolia or Agility or Contentful, but that text string that's describing it, again, pumping it back into your CMS is just going to burn content types and entries in your CMS. And it's almost over engineering, whereas you can just put it, it's ephemeral, it lives on the spot. You drop it in the Uniform and that's perfect. And then when you change up the page, you retype the text, swap out your articles. So you have this notion of global content that lives in your headless CMS or your product or commerce system. And then you have local content that's not reusable and just there for that experience. That local content or decorative content, that's perfect. And that's how Uniform can coexist with some of the other systems.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that Uniform has found this space in the market, personalization, kind of enhanced visual experiences. It's almost like it sounds too good to be true. It's really amazing. For folks who are listening in, like, what's it like to get set up? Is it complicated? Is it how do you onboard something like Uniform?
So I'm going to address like how we found our way into the space, right? Because we are over time, like we are building out a more robust content management capability, so that we again just give our customers more flexibility in how they want to store things. One of the special things about our content management system, our content management capability, we don't presume we're the only system of record, so we can even remodel. So if you have a bunch of stuff in Magnolia or Agility or Contentful, and it's in one schema there and it works, but you need to remap it into a different schema, we can do that in Uniform. If it's missing stuff in Contentful, or Magnolia, you can add those additive items and enrich the content locally in Uniform. So it gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. Or if you just like, okay, I don't have the complexity to have multiple systems. I just need to store, we have a customer, Triumph Motorcycles, where most of their information is coming from a Kenio, PIM, or Commerce Tools. And so the 80% of their content lives there. They didn't add in another CMS. They just said, okay, we're going to put the remaining 20% directly in Uniform, save ourselves a little bit of the complexity. And that's okay too, right? Like you have the different options on how you deploy this. But yeah, so that's how we found our way. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
I was just thinking from a marketer's perspective or someone who's making this decision, what is the playbook to onboard? Is it complicated or I don't want to lead anything, but what's it like to implement your system?
Yeah, for a marketer, not too complicated, but there is like a developer setup stage, right? And so we often ask our customers will have an agency partner like Dotfusion, or they'll have an in-house digital factory, or a combination of both, and they will spend time because you do need like it's very common for customers to have a design system and to bring that design system into Uniform. So that's often a step, and then there's some configuration and setup that needs to take place so that you can actually you have things to drop on the page. You have, or we call it a composition because sometimes it's a page or it's a mobile app screen or a kiosk screen, right? It doesn't have to be a web page. But someone has to set that up. Like, okay, I'm going to put the header here, the footer here, that's locked. And then I have a bunch of sections in the middle that I can edit. Or if I'm looking at like an article page, it's much more restricted. It's only going to have articles or a product details page. So someone to set up the templates, to set up the components. But once that is set up, then a marketer can come in, drop things on, click, edit, write, attach, swap. So there is an initial setup, but usually by the time marketers come on board, it's pretty self-explanatory. We do have a connect portal and a training portal that's very lightweight. It takes about an hour and a half to get through. And then web producers, marketers, merchandisers, they tend to fly using Uniform.
Cool. One of the most amazing things about a half-hour live show is how quickly the time goes by. You're just, I'm getting a more interesting set of questions that I'd love to chat with you more about. But maybe just to let folks know who are listening in, we're going to leave your contact information, if that's cool with you, Andrew, just kind of in the comments area. This will get published out to all of the places where you typically download podcasts and on YouTube as well. We've just got about 1 minute left. Maybe I can just sneak in one last question of like, where do you see the content industry going, kind of from a web content perspective? You know what's around the corner? Are you forecasting anything that folks might find surprising?
So it's a little bit. So okay, this is not my answer, not Uniform's answer, and it's a little bit. I don't know. Some people will debate it. They may not agree with it.
Awesome.
What I'm looking at macroeconomics, and I'm looking at buckets of customer conversations. When we are talking to customers and prospects, they roughly fall into 3 buckets, and it's roughly a third per bucket. You have folks that are saying, I'm just going to stick with my legacy DXP. It works. Then you have folks that are saying, I don't really care. And then you have folks that are saying, composable, headless, that's the future, that's the way to go. So you have these 3 buckets, and it's roughly a third of our industry. When you apply demographic data, the folks that are headless, composable is the way of the future tend to be much earlier in the career and have 2 to 3 decades left in the career. The folks that are saying, I don't care, I'll go either way, whatever works, there will be mid-career. And the folks that are saying DXP legacy, that's the way to go. It works later in the career. So as over the next 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to have this rubber band moment where those folks will start to retire out of the workforce, and then 50% of the audience says, I don't care, whatever worked. And 50% of the group says, are you kidding? We're going headless composable. And it's going to go snap, and everyone is going to have to go headless composable. Part of this is Google's putting pressure. The AI companies are putting pressure. It's what the earlier career folks are being trained up on in the education system. That's what I see happening. It's controversial. Not everyone's going to agree with me on this. I'm just putting it out there.
Awesome, man. It's been great having you. We could talk for hours. I look forward to continuing our chats offline here as well. I did want to just give another shout out to Nat and Marie, who are producing and managing the show from behind the scenes. I did want to just shout out, we are having our first live show where we'll have an audience in person in Toronto on June the 14th. We're going to be welcoming our pal Paul Abdul from .CMS is going to be joining us and talking about web technology, as we always do on Connect the Dots. Andrew, super cool. Thanks a lot for joining us. You are awesome. Thanks, gang, and real great appreciation for all the folks who made a bit of time today to listen in on various channels, and we'll be posting this as an artifact here and there in the future. So thanks, everyone. Have a really great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.